What is up, everybody? Welcome into this episode of It's Called Football. Jackson, Jerry Walker here. We are back. Premier League season gets underway today. We are recording Thursday night. Premier League season starts Friday morning or afternoon. We're so ready. I know I am. Jackson, you excited for this upcoming season?
I'm so excited. We're ready to get it going again.
Yeah, we've had a nice couple weeks off since the end of the Euros and the Copa Americas, and it's been a nice little break, but ready to get back into the swing of all football. I'm a Leeds fan. We started last weekend, been an interesting start so far. I'm sure you're excited for Arsenal to get going, and just excited to be back on here. It's always a good time talking Premier League action for an hour or so. I think today will be a little bit shorter because there's not much to recap. A couple transfers that we want to talk over, and then look at a few matches upcoming and some predictions for the entire season. So that's kind of the layout for today, and we'll hop right into it. Jackson, were there any what transfers, because we talked about a few before, really stood out to you from this kind of quiet summer?
Yeah, I mean, it has been quiet. Like when I think about last summer, there's just so much movement. I don't know if it's because of the Euros and the Copa and all that stuff where people just weren't willing to move. I think that probably played into it, but there's really just hasn't been a lot of movement, especially from a lot of the bigger teams, which I find kind of interesting. And obviously, we still have plenty of time left in the window. Like you're going to see stuff happen. But it's been surprisingly quiet on that kind of front. But I mean, the number one thing that stood out to me, the biggest transfer that stood out to me, isn't someone that's incoming. It's someone outgoing, and that's Julian Alvarez.
Yep.
Him leaving to go to Atletico Madrid is a huge deal. I really think it is a huge deal. And I still think Erling Haaland's going to be the top goal scorer. He's going to do all this. He's Erling Haaland. But if he gets hurt or if he's out of form, you lose that option that Julian Alvarez was for them. You lose that goal scoring threat, and not just goal scoring. He's a playmaker as well. He could also play with Haaland. It's a false nine. He could move into the attacking midfield if he wanted. Like, he was very, very good at his role at Manchester City. And I'm curious how they're going to cope without him, because they really haven't brought in a replacement for him. They bought Savinho from Girona, but that's not – they don't translate at all. So it's going to be interesting to see if that impacts him. I don't think it will personally, but it is still something to keep an eye on. If Erling Haaland gets hurt, if he's out of form, who's going to be that guy to step up in that role?
And I mean, you look at it the other way as well. Like, apart from Alvarez, Man City now they technically have one other striker on the squad, and that's more of a midfielder, and Oscar Bob. Bob also broke his leg, so he's going to be out for a significant amount of time. We don't know when he'll be coming back, and when he does come back, how efficient he will be. So it's one of those things that, like I said, if Haaland isn't on his form right away, or he picks up an injury like he did last year, Man City might be in some trouble. But with that being said, the price they sold Alvarez for, £81.5 million, translates to, I think, roughly $104 million.
Yeah.
They still have plenty of time to go and get a good, strong backup striker for behind Haaland, and I'm sure they will. It would surprise me more if they didn't do anything to fix a void, because it seems like that's what they always do. You lose someone and you fill it with someone who's just as much quality for a lesser price tag.
Yep.
Otherwise, I mean, it's been rather, like you said, uneventful. Man, a couple signings: Matthias de Ligt, Nassar Mazzouri from Bayern Munich. Zoury. Then they got Joshua Zirkzee, but there's been some injuries there as well that it looks like one of those guys isn't going to be coming in right away. Besides that, we talked West Ham had some. I don't think Arsenal's done much.
We got Calafiori, that's it.
The other one you mentioned was Fulham, because I think they did a little bit of decent business.
They have, and they sold off João Palhinha to Bayern Munich, which on surface level, that's a huge loss, but then they're able to use that money and reinvest it. And they got Ryan Sessegnon back on a free. They got him for free, which is a good bit of business. He's an academy player. He's able to play left wing, left back. Didn't really work out for him at Tottenham, so hopefully for him. This is a Football Manager wonder kid, by the way. I remember him on the game like years ago. So hopefully for him, it works out again back home. They also got Emile Smith-Rowe, which I think is a great signing. Like, he'd be starting on just about the vast majority of Premier League teams if he was just in an unfortunate situation at Arsenal. So happy to see him go and get a chance at some minutes. I think he's going to be a very important and useful player for them. And then another team that's done pretty well recently has been West Ham. They're making some moves right now.
Yeah, they really are. I mean, we talked about this before we got the show started, and it's more the people that they brought in. Nicholas Folkberg, solid striker. He was one of the best players for Germany in the Euros. Yeah, I know. Well, Crescencio Somerville left Leeds now, but he was Leeds' best player last year, creating, not just scoring, but creating chances, making assists, creating shots for other players. I think that's a very good move. Aaron Wan-Bissaka from Man United. I know Man U was trying to get rid of him to open up space to bring in some of these other guys, and he's the kind of guy that I think fits in perfectly. He was really good at Newcastle, where it wasn't the spotlight on him as much. Then he went to Man U, and it's a whole different thing being on the spotlight at Old Trafford. Now he gets to go to a team that won't be the focal point of the media's attention and everybody's attention at West Ham, and I think this could really, really work out well for him.
Mm-hmm. I agree 100%. But those have been really the only two teams, if you're thinking about it, where you've really seen a lot come in. That I feel like is really going to be super impactful. I mean, Palace has got, I think they got a few guys in. I'm trying to think of who it is that they got. It's just stuff like that, you know, like you can't even remember what the transfers are off the top of your head.
It's not big names. And
I mean, Aston Villa got a few dudes, but
I'm still thinking there's going to be some sort of big moves made by teams coming up in the next 2 weeks before the window ends. And Chelsea's one who we've seen spend time and time and time again. And there's a lot of transfers that have happened. I will say Pedro Neto coming in from Wolves is probably the only one that's actually significant.
Yeah.
In my opinion, Mark Guehi, not a terrible one.
That's potential. That's not now.
That's for the future. And that's what I've seen a lot of this transfer window is teams getting players for the next 5 years, not for this year. And ones I'm surprised Ipswich hasn't done much. They went and got Calvin Phillips on low.
It's a good deal.
A couple smaller guys here and there that just fill out the depth. Leicester has done virtually nothing. Got Bobby DeCorva, Reed, and that's honestly
and they lost
relevant.
Dewsbury Hall as well. So
yeah, and they lost Iheanacho.
And Iheanacho to Sevilla, yeah.
Yep, which Iheanacho's kind of maybe past his prime, but at the same time, that's someone who can do damage because their leading goal scorer last year was Jamie Vardy in the championship. We know Jamie Vardy isn't a Premier League player anymore, so someone else is going to have to step up. And then there's Southampton, who won the almighty playoff, and they brought in Adam Lallana. Charlie Taylor spent many years with Burnley. And then a bunch of young guys.
And Brereton Diaz.
Yeah, that one was caught me off guard when I saw that. But it's not guys that are going to change the game for any of these newly promoted sides, and might not be the best thing for them.
No, and again, there's still plenty of time, and like you expected, I expected, there are going to be moves. People are going to play their first games and realize, holy crap, we have a hole here or a weak here, or we just need to reinforce here. They're going to realize it, and they're going to spend. It'll be interesting to see who it is and how they go about it. I assume Nottingham Forest will probably go and buy like 50 other players deadline day again. Could see something like that happening. Chelsea is likely to go and just buy some random people for whatever reason. And you're likely going to see some of these teams that are towards the bottom of the Premier League try to spend a little bit more once they realize what they really need to work on as they reach it. I wonder if we're going to see that with the newly promoted teams, if they're just kind of trying to feel it out, see what happens here through these first 2 games before they go and make some final deals. But we have to expect there to be more moves made because it has been a very quiet summer. Not saying there haven't been transfers made. Like, there have been transfers that have been made,
but
it's just nothing's been super groundbreaking. Nothing's been like something you look at and you go, "Oh my god, that is a huge transfer." Literally in the Premier League, I don't think there's one where you look at it and like that is a game-changing transfer.
And I do think it goes back to what you said earlier. We had the Euros, we had the Copa Americas, and then we had the Olympics.
Mm-hmm.
So it's some of that where it's kind of everyone's a little focused on other stuff that they're not worried about transfers at this point. It's not like after a World Cup year where typically, I know the last World Cup was an exception, typically the World Cup's in the summer, and that transfer window after is one of the most fun ever because
Mm-hmm.
it's just a bunch of players who've made a name for themselves with their national teams and are now going onward. The Euros and Copa America less so because you already know who all these guys are. They're all established. You're not finding as many diamonds in the rough. So I think that's a big part of it. But do you have anything else on the transfers? Any other ones you want to touch on before we look ahead at what's coming up this weekend?
I mean, there's nothing really that big, you know. Ian Maatsen, I think, to Villa is a pretty good deal. You know, like I keep finding these deals where you're like, I think that's a decent deal. But again, nothing groundbreaking, nothing that's really catching the eye. And again, you need transfers like that. That's how you build up a team. But from our perspective, it has just been a pretty dull summer, you know?
From the spectator side of things, we want more chaos, and it's just not happening. And it doesn't seem like it's happening in any real leagues, really. So
No, it really has been a very dry summer in terms of the transfers happening. Yeah.
a lot of rumors, but not a lot happening.
Mm-hmm. Except Mbappe. That's literally, I guess we put all our energy into that.
But we also knew that was happening halfway through last season, so
Mm-hmm.
it didn't come as a shock or anything. I want to see some chaos. I want to see some drama. Loved people tracking flights of players that, oh my god, we're suddenly rumored of this guy. He's now flying. There's a flight from here to there. I want more of that stuff. We need something big to happen. I think it will, but we'll find out in the next 2 weeks.
We're kind of getting that with Gallagher, though.
Yeah, that is very true. That whole Conor Gallagher
bit.
is so messed up.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sucks to be Chelsea.
Sucks to be someone at Chelsea, too.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of Chelsea, we're going to hop into some of our matches this upcoming weekend, starting with the match of the week. I think this was a pretty straightforward one for both you and I. Chelsea hosting the defending 4-time champions, Manchester City. Does City just run through them, or do you think Chelsea puts up a fight in their opening game of the season?
If Poch was still there, I would be feeling Chelsea in this, but he's not. So I think they're going to lose. I think it's going to be disjointed. And I don't think they're terrible. I'm not going to lie. I don't think they're terrible, but I think they lose 2-1. You know, I don't think they have it in them right now at this point to beat this Manchester City team. Again, I still think firing Mauricio Pochettino, which thank God, dude, from a USMNT perspective, thank you, Chelsea, for being absolute idiots, because now hopefully we can cook. But I think that was the dumbest decision they could have made. If they had kept him, I would be feeling good about Chelsea at home in this game. But without him, no. Give me 2-1 Manchester City. I think Chelsea's going to have some moments where they look potentially threatening, but I still think defensively they're not going to be strong enough. I think they're going to concede chances, and I think Manchester City's going to punish those chances when they get it. Maybe not as much as they should. It's going to be early on in the year. City's also been looking a little leaky in preseason, but it's also been preseason, so it's kind of hard to gauge that. But I do think they'll give up one since it's opening day. They're still getting the feel for things back again. Manchester City has shown time and time again that they can start slow and then pick up steam as they get going. So I think their version of starting slow this first game is just giving up one, but still scoring 2 and getting all 3 points.
I agree with you. I do think a big benefit for Man City is that they did play the Community Shield.
Mm-hmm.
For whatever that's worth, whatever you care about it, and obviously they played a relatively strong team for that. Against Man U, I think is the only reason why. Crazy penalties there, but I agree with you. Going back to what you said about Pochettino, and we discussed this on the episodes coming into the end of the Premier League last season. Pochettino was finally getting things cooking with Chelsea. Right when it looks like, okay, they'll give him a summer, he'll have everyone together, more cohesion. You're out. We're bringing in Enzo Maresca. Sure, he did great with Leicester in the championship. Keywords in the championship. He wasn't playing as much good as very good teams. It was, I mean, I'm a Leeds fan. I was watching the championship very closely last year. There were a lot of very, very, very bad teams. Leicester was the best team there was. Struggled a little bit down the end and paired with Ipswich getting hot, made it a close race at the top for the title, but it didn't matter at the end of the day. They were miles ahead of everybody else. It was easy promotion. I don't know if he has that dog in him. I don't know if he has that skill to manage a bunch of high ego players, because I do think there's still ego of you're playing at Chelsea. You've been signed for this much. You need to impress, and I don't know if he's the right guy for the job. I think Pochettino would have been.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, I know Man City has conceded a lot. I think Erling Haaland's going to have himself a day, because outside of this preseason stuff, Erling Haaland hasn't played since the FA Cup final in a meaningful match. Missed out on the Euros, obviously didn't play in the Olympics. He's probably going to be in great form and ready to come back firing right away, especially when Phil Foden was so disappointing. I think he also is going to have a point to prove when he field for Man City, because he was atrocious during the Euros. I think Man City wins this relatively comfortably. I'm thinking 3-1. I do agree that Chelsea gets a goal, but I could see a Haaland brace or hat trick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
Setting the tempo off strong to start the season.
And I just find it interesting, just going back to this hiring of Enzo Maresca, like, it's interesting that was a choice that they had, ultimately at the end of the day. I know they wanted a young manager, an up-and-comer. I just don't get why, especially when you already had Pochettino in your books. I still don't get why. Like, I know that their whole strategy right now is to try to basically throw shit in a wall and see what sticks in terms of young players and develop a young team that over time can grow together. And they want a young manager to do this. So they're kind of trying to get that Mikel Arteta approach. But I still think they're just going about it all wrong. And they had the right guy for the job already. He already had it turned around. I'm still just miffed by it.
Yeah, it's I do not get it at all, but maybe they know something we don't. There's a reason we're talking about it and they're actually living through it and doing it. So have to put that out there at least. But anything else on this match before we look at a couple others in a little bit of depth? But overall, it's the first weekend of the season. It's hard to really get an entire read on what everybody's going to be looking like until next week. And make sure you, with that note, you guys, make sure you stay tuned for next week's episode, because we will be going into more depth on a lot of matches and kind of getting into our general groove of things, where we recap the previous weekend's matches, talk about what's upcoming, and any news and anything else happening midweek. But anything else on this one?
I think we covered it.
Easy enough. The only one on Saturday we're going to break down in a little bit of depth, just because it's two teams that potentially could fight for a European spot. West Ham, Aston Villa. I'll let you kick this one off.
Yeah, I mean, I think this one's going to be one of the games to watch this weekend. And it's going to be interesting to see how Aston Villa carries from last year into this year. They lost Moussa Diaby, which is a big-time loss. I was pretty surprised by that, because he'd only been there a year. Then he immediately just goes, takes a paycheck, and goes to Saudi Arabia. I find that really interesting, considering how young he is and considering the kind of player he was at Aston Villa. But money talks. So that's a big loss. But I still think this Aston Villa team is very strong, got a very good manager, but they're not playing at home. West Ham, has done some bits in the transfer window. We kind of talked about that a little bit, and I kind of like the way their squad is coming together. To be completely honest, I really do. This is a hard one for me to call, in terms of final score, but I'm going to give it to West Ham at home. Now, I think over time, Aston Villa is going to end up having the better season, but I think in this one, West Ham's going to get it done. I'm going to go 2-1, and I feel like it's going to be a set piece that makes a difference.
Okay.
I feel like it's going to be a set piece that makes a difference. West Ham, very good on set pieces, very dangerous on set pieces in the past. I think you're going to see them win it on a set piece.
I like that. I honestly like that shot. I think it could very well be a set piece, and I'm curious to see because West Ham went their separate ways from David Moyes at the end of last season. Instead, hired Julian Lopetegui, who recently managed at Wolves, and he left there in August of 2023. So before last season, he's had a year off. Managed Sevilla before that. Very briefly managed Real Madrid. So he and the Spanish national team. So he does have a history.
What a weird time that was, by the way.
So weird.
Yeah.
It's bizarre. Like he's the Europa League champion, managed Real Madrid for 4 months, maybe.
Yeah.
It just was. He's had a very interesting career when you look into it, and I'm curious to see how he works out at West Ham because they looked completely different than the team they were 2 seasons ago when they won the Europa Conference League or the UEFA Conference League title. They fell apart last year, didn't even make Europe. I think they finished 7th or 8th in the Premier League table. Not saying it's a disappointing season, but by their standards they had the year before, it was very, very upsetting. And losing Declan Rice, you kind of expect that to happen a bit. I'm expecting West Ham to be fighting for Europe again this year. I think Aston Villa is going to be fighting for that Europa or Champions League spot.
Again, yeah.
Yeah. I think West Ham's going to be fighting for that Conference League spot. But this is a big one to get off your back because if you can start out with a win against a team that's likely going to be ahead of you for West Ham, that's a great thing to have on your resume. It's like, say, Chelsea, if they were to come out and beat Man City, that's just one less time you have to play a team of that caliber, and you got 3 points from it. Most teams aren't going to get 3 points from that. So if you can, it's one of those things. And I am going to back West Ham here. I do think there's a little too much. I don't think Aston Villa is going to be prepared to start the season. I think there's going to be too much of a new look by West Ham that they're going to be ready to go, ready to play for their new manager, and all these new players they've brought in will be rearing to get going.
Yeah,
I'm going to West Ham 2-1, but
yeah. And I mean, just outside the players we talked about, they also have Todibo on a loan. He's a very good player from Nice. And then some of these other guys, Max Kilman might be able to do little bits for them. Like
that was a good signing.
That was a great signing. I mean, 40 mil is a little steep, but in today's market, that's just kind of how things work. I still think Full Krug at 27 is ridiculously good.
Absolutely agree.
Yeah.
Then they still have the likes of James Ward-Prowse, Jared Bowen, who was one of the best goal scorers in the Premier League last season. I'm hoping he can continue his way, but we've seen time and time again players have one great season goal scoring and kind of fall off the pace the next.
Yeah.
It's a very fun team on paper that could do a lot of damage and upset a lot of people. This is why we love it. 34 games. Let's see what you're really made of. 36 games. See what you're really made of. What's your prediction for this one?
2-1.
2-1. Yeah. There you have it. The only other one we're going to go into a bit of depth in, it's relating to the team that just got promoted, Leicester City, champions of the championship, taking on Tottenham Hotspur in their return to the Premier League. I know you're a big Tottenham fan, Jackson, so I'm expecting big things this season from them. But it's one that I expect nothing from this match. I think Tottenham will do enough to get by, but I think it's going to be very, very, very ugly. Bobby DeCorder-Reed, who we mentioned earlier, new signing, he's suspended with yellow cards already. which don't even know how the hell that happens. Maybe it's from last season. Wout Faes suspended with a red card. Jamie Vardy's probably not going to play because he's injured. Connor Cody, who was an England international at one point in time, isn't playing because he's injured until late September. This just seems like one that Tottenham's going to come in and fresh off a trophy. Don't know what trophy, but I saw they apparently won a trophy for God knows what somewhere. That I think it might have been against the Korean All-Stars. I think that's probably what they got a trophy for. Well, I know there was a joke going around when that happened of them lifting up some sort of silverware, but I think they'll come out ready to go and looking the fresher team. Played a little bit of tougher opponents, obviously. Not saying the Korean All-Stars are the best team, but they played Bayern Munich twice. I think Tottenham will come out ready to go. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I mean, I'm back in Tottenham. I like the team that they have, unfortunately. I think last year before injuries derailed them, like they were cooking. Like they look like a team that could win the league. I think Andrew's a great manager. So I think they're going to get it done in this. I don't know how great it's going to look. I'm curious to see how Tottenham will progress this season compared to last season because they had a massive fall off for a bit that kind of really set them back. So I'm curious to see what they can do this year, if they can keep Madison healthy, if they can keep some of their other guys healthy, like, God, how am I spacing on his name? Mickey Van de Ven. That's a name that you need. You need Romero playing all the time. And you need Yves Bissouma to stop doing laughing gas as well because he is suspended for this game because of laughing gas.
Is that why he's suspended?
Yes, nitric oxide.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs. So we're already up to some nonsense. But I do think they'll get it done. I like this Tottenham team. I like their manager. I like how they play together when they're all healthy. So I think right now they're going to go out and get it done. Give me 2-0. Leicester City. Like you said, they're dealing with a lot of suspensions, some injuries. I think it's going to be a rough start back in the Premier League. I think they'll stay up, but I think it's going to be a rough start.
Oh, yeah. It's going to be interesting. I just want to correct myself. I was looking into it. It wasn't Tottenham who was lifting a trophy. It was Bayern Munich and Harry Kane lifting a trophy against Tottenham. But Harry Kane refused to lift it out of respect for Tottenham. His first ever trophy, apart from maybe the Audi Cup that one year that we all laugh at Tottenham for. Is it Tottenham and then UCF national championships? Those are one and the same.
The UCF Natty.
The UCF 2017 Natty, where they didn't play anyone. They finished perfect.
Technically, they finished number 1 in one ranking. That's all you need.
You give them Alabama that year. I think the team that won the whole thing, and I think we all know how that would go.
Yeah, give me UCF.
Yeah, that's that. If you guys haven't watched this show before, we will have plenty of tangents throughout the years, mostly relating to college football one way or another. We're both big college football fans, so we love our little rants about random stuff. It always circles back somehow to the Premier League, but we don't know how you usually get off on tangents, but hey, it is what it is. Let's go through some of these other ones, just give our quick predictions and kind of just, I guess, our score lines for it. We'll start with the one tomorrow, or I guess today for those watching this episode on Friday. Man United hosting Fulham, opening game of the Premier League season. Who do you have?
Honestly, give me a draw, 1-1. I don't know why. I just don't think Man U's going to get it done. You even said it, that Ten Hag said his team's not ready for Fulham. Yeah. I don't think they're going to be either. I think Fulham's done some good business in the window. They're always a tricky team to play. So I'm going 1-1 in this. I feel confident Fulham's going to be able to get a point out of it.
Yeah. When I saw that news of what he said in his press conference today, or I guess Thursday, I was shocked. How do you say that the day before you have your opening match that, oh yeah, we're not ready, unless you're trying to play mind games? That makes no sense whatsoever. With that being said, they are the better team. They do have the better players. but I'm taking Fulham to win 1-0.
Yeah.
And Man U's getting off to a rough start. Might be a little biased, but I always like picking against Man U, and sometimes it works out. Sometimes it's very, very wrong. But in this instance, we'll see what happens when a team goes north from London to take them on.
I like that call.
Well, the next two I think are very, very straightforward. Ipswich Town making their return to the Premier League after so many years. What do they get rewarded with? Liverpool in the opening match.
Mm-hmm.
How many did Liverpool win by?
3. I think 3-0.
Yeah, I'm thinking 3 or 4 at least. It's going to be one that's just, I think Ipswich is going to get battered.
Yeah.
Arsenal Wolves, also one that I think will be relatively one-sided. I have Arsenal winning this 2-0. I think they're better overall, better attacking, better defensively. I just don't see Wolves causing them any issues this point in the season.
I'm going 2-1. No, 2-0 because we're at home. If we were away, we'd give up a late goal.
That's mine. That was mine.
Yeah, but since we're at home, 2-0, I like that call.
Everton and Brighton. Everton being the home team, Brighton heading way up north from the South Coast.
I actually like Everton.
Really? Okay.
I like Everton in this one. Give me 1-0.
All right. I'm taking Brighton. I think they will get it done on the road. Everton fans only come through when they're in a relegation battle. It's still far too early for that right now. So
yeah, we need half a year.
Yeah, give me Brighton. I don't have much reason behind it. Both teams are missing a boatload of players. I think it's 5 each. Give me Brighton 1-0, but I could very well see this being like a 0-0 draw.
Mm.
Newcastle hosting another newly promoted team in Southampton. I am very high on Newcastle this year. You'll see when we go into our predictions. I think they will outshine what they did last year completely. But with that being said, I think they beat Southampton relatively easily. I think it'll be 2-0.
Yeah, give me Newcastle. I like that scoreline too.
This one's interesting just because these teams are so even and they were both so kind of up and down last season. Nottingham Forest hosting Bournemouth. What's your thoughts on this one?
I'm going to go Bournemouth. I am, but I'm not confident about this at all, especially considering it's at Forest. I don't really have any rhyme or reason for it, but I'm going to go 2-1 to Bournemouth just because my gut's telling me to. I really don't have a good reason for it. I've got nothing on it. That's why.
That's part of the reason we always love doing these predictions is because there is no rhyme or reason. I picked Bournemouth to beat Man U last year just because I felt like it, and I don't even know what happened after that. But we pick teams just because of vibes, and this one doesn't have the best of vibes in my opinion. I think it'll be a 1-1 draw. I think if anyone is to win, I do agree with you. I think it would be Bournemouth, but I see a draw all over this one.
Mm-hmm.
Talked about West Ham and Aston Villa. That wraps up Saturday's fixtures. Sunday, the early one with Chelsea, Man City being the late one. Brentford, Crystal Palace. Battle of two teams in London. Who do you have?
Going Palace. Every time I pick Brentford or think highly of Brentford, they let me down. I like how Palace finished the year last year.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously they lost Elise. That's a huge, huge loss. It's going to be impacting them a little bit, but I still feel like this is a team that's going to be able to do decently well this year. And I think they're going to get it started off with a win. I'm going 3-1 Palace.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think Palace. I could see Brentford having a okay year. I think Palace will be mid-table mediocrity as always, but I think they'll get this one done early on to open the season with a win. I'll go 1-0. Kind of wraps up. Is there anything else you want to talk about in terms of the matches this upcoming weekend for the opening weekend?
I think we covered it all.
Perfect. Then let's hop into some predictions for the entirety of the season. Then might as well start at the top. Who wins the title this year? And is it someone not named Manchester City?
There are a lot of Arsenal fans out there saying this will be our year.
We hit
I'm
that
not
here.
I'm not going to bet against Pep Guardiola. I'm not. I'm not. They always find a way to get it done. So give me Manchester City winning it again. It's the safe bet. It's the bet that just keeps on giving
Yep.
because it keeps on happening. So I think you got to do it. But it is, if it's ever going to be a year for it not to happen, I think this could be the year. But they've just proven time and time again that they know how to win, that they've got natural born winners, natural born leaders.
Mhm.
They just have that it factor that no other team can replicate. So I got to go Manchester City.
Yeah, I'm completely with you. I think City wins the league. I don't think it'll be as close as last year. I think they'll win with a few games to spare. As long as it's Pep Guardiola, Erling Haaland, Kevin De Bruyne, that defense, it's still all the same
Yeah.
players.
Yeah.
As long as they don't get hit with major injuries, which my only concern with them is the amount of fixtures they have to play this year. I think there's a stat going around that if they were to make the Club World Cup final, their season would be 340 days, something ridiculous. But with that being said, I still think they take care of business in the Premier League and get it done relatively convincingly.
Mm-hmm.
With that being said, who do you think are the other three teams that join them in the Champions League in another year?
So I've got Arsenal going too. I think it'll be 3 years in a row. It's just a little bit behind, you know. Again, I could see Arsenal winning it. They have that experience now. They've gone through 2 title chases. They've gotten closer and closer and closer. So I could see a world where Arsenal wins it. But obviously, you can't bet against Manchester City. So I'm going to have them second. I think they get close, but they fall short again. And then following them, Liverpool. I'm liking what they're looking like. I think Arne Slot's going to do a good job. We've got a strong team around them. I think they've got that third spot. And then fourth, it's going to be interesting to see who can get this. I'm leaning Tottenham. I think if Tottenham can keep their players healthy, keep them going, I think Ange will get him that Champions League spot. But if there's going to be another team, I think Villa, Manchester United, Chelsea, and Newcastle could all have something to say about it. Chelsea, I'm not as confident about. I think they're still going to miss out for another year or two. But I think those are the teams that could also push for that spot. But I'm going to give it to Tottenham.
So yeah, I'm with you. I think it's between those kind of 4 teams, Chelsea being the outsiders. They did also, I mean, had Chelsea had Pochettino still, and I know you've said if they had him still, I would have them as my 4th team.
Mm-hmm.
Based on the players they have and how they were looking at the end of last season. But they don't, so that doesn't matter. I'm leaning Aston Villa, but at the same time, we've seen these small clubs struggle. I would not surprise me one bit if it was Tottenham, like you said. Man U even has a shout in there once they all get healthy. I also think Newcastle will be right on that bubble, kind of looking in to Champions League. So those are kind of, but I'm leaning Villa right off the bat. See how it goes.
Mm-hmm.
Moving on, Europa League. Who do you think gets that 5th and 6th place finish? And I guess you kind of touched on who you think, and you can just hop into the Conference League as well with this for who you think makes that.
Yeah, I think it goes Villa, Manchester United, and then Chelsea with that 7th spot. So depending on who wins the cups and stuff like that, I think those would be the teams looking for those European spots.
Yeah, I think Villa was my 4. I think Newcastle and Man U will find that 5 and 6. But it's going to be a very, very close 5, 6, 7. I think Tottenham will finish 7th. Chelsea will finish 8th. But it's one of those things that these are our predictions. Who knows what they're going to look like in 8 months, 9 months' time. But this is why we do it. And the last one. They finished last place. Who are going to be the 3 teams getting relegated at the end of the season?
Number 1, Ipswich. They've had too quick of a transition from League One to Premier League. We saw it kind of happen with Luton. Luton actually did a lot better than I thought they would do. But Ipswich hasn't really brought in a lot of players yet. I mean, Calvin Phillips is a pretty decent signing on loan.
But he also hasn't played in years, it feels
And he's
like.
also terrible when he was playing last year, but I think that's about as good as they can want. I just think they'll finish bottom. I don't think they'll really ever be in a situation where you think they'll stay up. I think Forest, I think it's their time to go down. They've been riding their luck for way too long. I think the problem with them lies with the management, not just manager, but the higher up, the club hierarchy and stuff. I think they're kind of like a worse version of Chelsea with how they approach stuff. It's worked. I mean, they've stayed up the last couple of years, but I think this will be the year they go down. And then I think Southampton, I think they go back down. I'd love to see them stay. I love Southampton being in the Premier League, but I just don't think they have enough about them, personally, to stay up. Could be completely wrong, obviously. You never know. Who does Southampton have right now? I mean, they still have Kyle Walker-Peters. It's a great guy to have on as an outside back. They've got decent
They
players.
lost Trey Adams, which I think is a big loss, and that's part of the reason I have them going down. It's that lack of goal scoring depth.
Yeah, and you bring in Ben Brereton Diaz, he's a very unexciting signing to bring in as a striker. And then I don't know who I guess Adam Armstrong, is that who they're going to start at the 9?
Yeah, I mean, that was their leading goal. He was their leading goal scorer last year, so I'd assume he'll get the majority of starts.
Yeah.
No, I'm with you on 2 of those 3, and the other one I have the similar reasoning to you. It's Ipswich is going to finish bottom. These other 2, I don't know what order, but I have Southampton, and they finally are going to go down. I have Everton.
You have Everton.
I could say that last year, and actually I didn't say it last year. I think we both predicted the correct 3 last year, and that's the thing about this year. Last season, it was a clear 3 worst teams were going to go right back down, and it was the 3 that came up. This year, it seems like you could throw, obviously, so we have Southampton, Forest, Ipswich, Everton all been moted. Brentford, Leicester could get dragged into it if they're not careful.
I think I have Leicester finishing 17th.
So they're right in there. Bournemouth, they surprised people last year a bit, I would say, and kind of got on a hot streak. I could see them being in trouble this year. Otherwise, like Palace, Wolves, those type of teams were were far enough away, but still going a bad run of form and could be in it. So realistically, there's 5-6 teams that could be in this relegation scrap, and it's going to be fun. Relegation is always a great time.
It is.
Yes. Do you have anything else you want to predict for this season? Any hot takes? Any Golden Boot winners or anything?
I'm a Golden Boot winner, Erling Haaland. Give me that right now. Put the bet down.
3rd straight. Hammer it.
Yeah, hammer that 100%. Trying to think of a hot take.
Last year we had some good hot takes that did not come through.
Dude, none of them came through.
Yeah, I think what was yours? Yours was Burnley to beat Man City
at the Etihad. Vincent Kompany gets a win at the Etihad. Didn't even come close, dude.
And mine was Vincent Kompany subs himself on as a player manager to help save the day, and he did not save the day.
No, he did not.
He's still there, I think, as well, which is he's still at Burnley, I believe.
Kompany? No, he isn't. He's at Bayern. No.
I was going to say he's the Bayern Munich manager now.
He failed upwards in spectacular fashion.
How the hell do you go from managing Burnley and getting relegated to managing Bayern Munich?
It is a very crazy world that we're living in that happened. I mean, I get it. He's Vincent Kompany. He's a good manager too, I think. But I think to get one of the best jobs in the world, I think you got to earn it a little bit more. Bide your time, have some success with some teams outside of the championship, But I don't know, dude. I think a lot of teams are taking bold takes with the managers. Chelsea's doing it right now as well, where you're betting on these young guys. I don't know.
Yeah. So do you have a bold prediction or nothing that stands out?
I don't really have a super.
So I have one, that it's bold mostly because of what we just said with the Golden Boot winner of Erling Haaland winning it. But my bold prediction: Heung-Min Son carries Tottenham to a top 3 finish and wins the Golden Boot.
It's a good shout.
That's my extreme over-the-top prediction.
I guess mine, I hate to do this, but Tottenham wins a trophy.
Yeah, that's a wild prediction.
It's either FA or Carabao. I don't know which one. They're due one eventually. It's going to happen in the next 2 decades.
God, the trophy parade that'll happen when they win the most minor of things.
It'll be crazy. They win Carabao Cup and act like it's the World Cup, and then like suddenly start just chatting on the internet.
Yep. I mean, with that being said, the scary thing for you is, when was the last time Arsenal won a trophy?
What would that be? The FA Cup 2021?
Oh, yeah. Did you you did?
Yeah.
Oh, was that when you beat Chelsea?
Mm-hmm.
That's right. Yeah.
That was the last legitimate trophy we've won.
Okay. All right. So not as far back as I was thinking it was.
No, I was ready to refute that.
Yeah. But hey, there we have it. Premier League's around the corner. From Jerry and Jackson, thank you guys for watching. Make sure you click that subscribe button so you don't miss any of our shows throughout this Premier League season. If you have any comments or think we have made the worst predictions in the world, which sometimes we have, holler at us in those comments. Let us know what we've done wrong and who you think is going to win the whole thing or get relegated or whatever your hot takes are, because we just like throwing stuff out there and seeing what happens. So appreciate you guys watching. We'll see you next week.